I had a rep who worked incredibly hard, tons of outreaches, low conversion. Leaders pushed more activity and it did not fix it. The rep needed coaching, not pressure. Welcome to Pass the Pitch. We're at episode 4 of our 6-part series, and we're going to be talking about performance without blame today. So if your teams default to blame when the numbers slip, guess what? We need a reset. We're talking about coaching the behavior that drives outcomes. So welcome back. This is episode 4, as I mentioned, and we have Leslie Vickrey here with us. And looking forward to talking a little bit about how do we handle when teams are stressed? They get defensive. So when people are defensive, learning stops, right? They're in protect mode. It's a little bit of a deer in headlight. And therefore you need to figure out how do you coach through that behavior?
Yeah, I mean, this is really where culture meets execution, Anna. You really need to make sure we're not blaming each other. And again, we talked about this in the very first episode. If you're coming to this at a place where we're all trying to do the right thing for ourselves individually, for the teams, and for the company, and we're all trying to be successful, then you should avoid this. But we know that's not the reality of the situation. Things happen, people aren't performing, and there's a variety of reasons for that. And it could be some to do with a lot of different things. But when you start to get defensive and blame, it actually starts to paint a negative person on you as that individual to make it almost seems like, are they not performing? Is there something that they're doing? So instead of blaming, it really should be a culture of learning and growing. Maybe you did make a mistake. Maybe you did miss that lead you should have followed up with. Taking ownership of things, being accountable. And that does start at the top. Hold people and your teams accountable. Come at a place. If you see something, say something. I talk a lot, Anna, about radical candor, giving feedback that comes from the heart and being really direct. It's not a blame game. It's a what can we learn and grow from? And quite frankly, if you have a culture where it's okay to make mistakes, okay to learn from different things, and we always say if you're not learning, you're not growing. Yes, you need to understand what those things are, but don't turn it into blame. And to me, that really stems from the culture. And I will say this wholeheartedly. If you are a leader and you see that in your culture and you are not doing something about it, then you're helping build and create that culture. So, what can you do to make sure that people feel safe to take accountability of anything that maybe they've done to help influence that?
Oh, excellent point. I'm a big fan of coach in the moment, right? Not coaching at the end of the month, because if you're doing things real time, you can help minimize and remove some of this blame game that takes place. A lot of times blame shows up when expectations are unclear. So again, it goes to leadership to playing a role in rectifying that. So if standards are vague, people make assumptions and not everybody's going to make the same assumption. And then they judge each other because it's not being done the way they would handle it. So the fix is clarity and rhythm and coaching in the moment. Um, I had a rep who worked incredibly hard, tons of outreaches, low conversion. Leaders pushed more activity and it did not fix it. The issue was shallow discovery, weak next steps. The rep needed coaching, not pressure. And that's a classic example of often a leader feels the weight of the world because your numbers are not there. And therefore, you're going to drive the salespeople even harder to have more activity. But in reality, you're not hitting the pause button to understand what are some of the issues that are taking place. What are some of the obstacles, some of the challenges that you can help the salesperson through that and not just create that unnecessary pressure.
Right, right. And a lot of that, Anna, comes down to also, depending on the company, your coaching structure, to your point, the training and onboarding for sales reps. If you're kind of the leader who's just sitting back and judging metrics and not understanding the issue, to your point with your story, had they not gone in and really looked at what the core challenge was, that's a training issue. That's a shadowing issue. Had they, Anna, had they shadowed you for a while and learned from you, they would have had a much better discovery stage and learning on follow up, how quick to follow up, what to put in the follow up, and how follow up builds trust. When you say you're going to do what you said you're going to do, when you actually do it in that follow up, and then the next stage after the follow up, that builds so much trust with prospects and clients. But they're not going to know that if they don't get that coaching and so forth. So we really look at it as, effort matters, but structure makes effort even more effective. So there's 5 different execution indicators you could look at. So making sure everyone knows like the clear next step after every single interaction, multi-threading, discovery depth, stage integrity, follow-up quality. Again, follow-up is so key, and even making the time on your schedule after a meeting if you can. And I know it's hard to even block 15 minutes for follow up. Quite frankly, you should have a follow up template that you're just filling in some of the main points so it feels customized, because it should be personal to that conversation. But those immediate things make such a huge difference. And really, if you think about it, marketing can also have those indicators. So the targeting quality, the message testing, the feedback loops with sales, and understanding that. But being really clear on what those kind of execution indicators are for both sales and marketing can really make a big difference, I think.
Great points. And this is where coaching makes such a key, is such a key component, and having the right language, right? So instead of, and I get it, because I've been, direct sales, and I've been a sales leader, and I understand the challenges with both. But you might want to say, why did you mess this up? Right. Because you're so frustrated with what just took place. But that's just going to shut the person down. So really you need to kind of figure out, and ask them, what did we learn? What can we change for the next time? What can we improve? Also, I mean, when I would typically do one-on-ones, I have two parts to the one-on-ones. One part, of course, is like taking a look at pipeline and activity and deals. But the first part, I usually do a mental health check, where I just want to be able to talk to them and see, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you feeling about the job? How are things? What do you like? What don't you like? What can we improve? So it gives a little bit of that softer approach, and you create that safe place for them to be able to talk to you about challenges that they're actually having. Okay. So, as we're wrapping up here our session, the action this week, our call to action is pick 2 indicators and coach them for 30 days, right? The comment that we would love for you to be able to respond to is, if you can improve one behavior across your sales team overnight, what would it be? And it can't be just make more money or generate more revenue. It's got to be a little bit more than that.
That's right, a little deeper than that. I love your follow-up questions, by the way, Anna. It's, important, and I think a good action for everyone to take that step and think about it. And I'm just gonna throw this plug out there, please, on LinkedIn, when you're after you've watched this, drop some comments in there for us too on other topics you'd wanna hear, or what stood out to you, and, what questions you would ask. We legitimately want to know what these answers are and these questions are.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Leslie.